I'm Catherine, and I am an addict. I am super grateful to be clean today. I'm super grateful to be here. Super nervous. I'm going to try to not puke or pass out or anything while I'm up here. If I can make it through without that, I'll be okay. And Beverly would she talk about me like that with my thug dress when I came in. No, I'm definitely not a thug. So I found out a while ago that I was going to be the speaker tonight, and I try to not think about it, don't get my head about it or whatever. But of course I'm going to think about it, and and I kept thinking what do I want my overarching theme to be or whatever, and I just kept coming back to what is our message, and that's pretty simple and straightforward. It's that any addict, it doesn't matter, if you just drink alcohol or if, only those addicts in jail or whatever, any addict can stop using, lose the desire to use, and find a new way to live. And Narcotics Anonymous has definitely gave me that. And when I got here, I was so broken and just absolutely lost. And I came after spending quite a few years incarcerated, and I came back to my hometown absolutely scared to death, because we hear a lot, or I've heard a lot, the only people I know are people that use or people that sell dope or my family, and I didn't know. I didn't know what I was coming back to, and what I found was a family unlike anything I could have ever imagined in the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous. And it has saved my life on a daily basis since that point. So, growing up, I'm the product of an alcoholic home. My mom is an admitted alcoholic, and I like to say my mom's an alcoholic and my dad is an asshole, and that's just really how it was. And so I grew up in that environment of chaos and unpredictability, and just not knowing what to expect on a day-to-day basis. And I grew up in that environment that taught me that we value secrecy, and we don't ask for help, and we don't let people know our business or whatever. And so I carried that with me for a really long time into the rooms of NA, and that was a big hurdle for me, because I remember coming in. And I had been coming to some meetings or whatever, and one night after a meeting, I had asked the girl that was chairing the meeting that night, and I'm a crier, by the way. My home group members know this. So I will probably cry a few times and cuss. So, but the girl that was chairing the meeting that night is a big reason why I'm here today. But anyway, I asked after the meeting. I was like, how much are those step working guides? And she told me, and I was like, well, can I get one? And her and Beverly were in the room, and she asked me, did I have a sponsor? And I was like, no. And they were like, oh, no, that's not how this works, I thought, I'm pretty smart. I don't want to ask for help. Just give me the step working guide. I'll go through it, and I'll be okay. I'll figure this out, because my best thinking got me here. So, but thank God for my home group, because they told me very quickly that is not how this works. That you have to get a sponsor. That's how it works. And so I thought about it, and I prayed about it, and I remember asking Crystal, what do you think? I've been thinking about asking Beverly to sponsor me. She was like, well, just ask her. And that's a huge deal for anybody, but it's a really huge deal for a girl like me who doesn't ask for help and doesn't admit that I need help. And I remember I called her, and she was at her camper, which if anybody knows Beverly, they know how important her camper is, and her weekends. And I asked her, and she was like, well, sure. And I thought, God, that was a whole lot easier than what I thought it was going to be. But anyway, so to back up a little bit, I did grow up in that environment, and so it was really hard for me to ask for help when I got here. And when I was younger, I'm originally from southern West Virginia. My mom and dad are from that area. But we lived in Charlotte, North Carolina for a while when I was younger. And I went to a school that was really culturally diverse. I was like maybe one of like 5 white people in the whole school, and moved back to southern West Virginia where that's very different. And it was a really hard adjustment for me. And it was around that same time that my addiction really started. I was around 12 years old. I always felt like I was never good enough. Nothing I ever did was good enough. I put a lot of pressure on myself, still carry the character defect of perfectionism really, really bad still today, and I keep working on it. It's a little better, but so anyway, we came here, and I started using on the weekends with a cousin and my older sister. And at the time I thought, oh man, this is cool. Like, my older sister and her friends want me to hang out with them. And really what it was is like, if the little sister tags along, then the parents don't think anything's going on, you know, like I really wasn't that cool. But so I was around 12, and I had already been drinking some at this point, but I remember, like, in hindsight is 20/20, as they say. I remember one night there was, like I said, my mom is an alcoholic, and there was a particular type of alcohol that she really preferred, and they happened to have it there that night, and everybody else was asleep. And like, looking at myself then, how I know myself now, like I recognized that this was one of those pivotal moments, you know. And so I was up alone. And I vividly remember having the thought that I want to know what it is about this that my mom loves so much more than me. And I proceeded to get shit-faced drunk, and got to that point, you know, where probably a lot of us have been hugging the toilet and being like, God, please, you know, like, just if I just don't get sick, I swear to God, I'll never drink again. And I got sick as hell, and I drank again. And again and again. And, you know, I remember being young and telling myself, like, I'm never going to be that parent. I'm never going to be that mom. And I totally was when I got older and had children. But, you know, it is what it is. And my journey is my journey. So it just progressed from there, like it always does, you know. I made it through high school. I was a really good student in high school. School was one of those things that was like an escape from reality. Like, I could go to school and like pretend like everything was okay, when really inside I was dying on a daily basis. I graduated from high school and had a really promising future. I was supposed to go to Marshall University, had like a ton of scholarships and all this other stuff, and my addiction had got to a point where it was really getting out of control, and made the decision, like, 2 weeks before I was supposed to start school, that I wasn't going to go. And instead, I had a best friend in high school, and her aunt had decided that she was going to relocate to Tampa, Florida. And I thought, God, that sounds like a great idea. And maybe that'll be my life-changing thing. And so we picked up and went to Tampa, like on a whim almost, you know. Got down there, was working for shit money, and like had an apartment that we couldn't really afford. And pretty much all that happened there is I discovered new drugs and got in a really big amount of debt because I couldn't afford to live, and came back home a few months later with my tail tucked between my legs, hearing my dad say, "Told you so," you know. And fuck. So at this point, like, my addiction hadn't progressed like to where I was stealing money and doing those types of things that it got to. So I got a job at a restaurant, found the love of my life sitting at a bar, because that's where they're at. But he did a lot of dope, and so it was kind of like a match made in heaven. And ended up very quickly getting pregnant. And, you know, I'd love to be able to stand here and say, like, I didn't use while I was pregnant, but I can't say that. I didn't want to, you know, I really didn't want to, but I didn't know how not to. And And it was shortly after my son was born in 2003 that I used IV drugs for the first time. And, not that that makes me any different or anything like that, but that for me was like another pivotal moment in my addiction where I began to do those things like the lines that I drew in the sand, like, oh, it's not that bad because I haven't done this. I did all of those and things that I didn't even realize that I would do. I got pregnant with my daughter pretty soon after my son's first birthday, and same thing. I just couldn't stop. And it wasn't too long after that the legal system intervened, and I spent about 9.5 months in Tazewell County Jail, and I remember, the day that I got arrested for that was the day before my son's birthday, and I was sitting in a bank drive-through with my friend, driving the car, trying to cash a check, not my check, and like the bank teller kept saying, "Hold on, just a minute, we gotta," like my brain is like, "Get the fuck out of here!" Like you know what's about to happen, but my disease was like, "But what do you gotta have that money? You gotta have that money." And the Bluefield City cops pulled up behind us, and my son's in the back seat, and they arrested me right there. And I did 9.5 months, and sat in that jail every day, telling myself like, I'm not going to do this shit anymore. I'm not going to do this shit anymore. And I got out, and I drank the day that I got out because I don't have a problem with alcohol. And within 2 weeks, I was using, and within 2 months, I was reincarcerated. And the day that I got locked up that time, I was in a day report program, and I looked at my husband at the time. We were staying with my mom and dad. Looked at my husband at the time and my son and daughter, and had my drug of choice in my pocket, and I said, "I'll see you later." I didn't. Sorry. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't say I love you. I didn't give him a hug. I just said, "See you later," because I had dope that I had to go do, where I had to sit through this bullshit group and day report, and I didn't see my kids for 3 years. My PO walked in, and at this point I'd already written more checks because that's what I do, when I use. He came in, he pulled me out of group. He said, "You want to tell me about these checks?" And like, "What are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about," And he was like, "You know what I'm talking about." So, he was like, "Yeah." I was always the one that just was like, "Yeah, you got me," And I always took the blame for everybody else. And I spent 3 years between West Virginia DOC and Virginia DOC, and that was, I remember sitting in the holding cell waiting to be transported to Southern Regional Jail, and sobbing, like that deep sorrow of like, what the hell has my life became? Like I never intended for any of this to happen. And they took me to jail, and I spent 3 years between Virginia and West Virginia DOC, and 15 months of that was spent in a therapeutic community program. And that's really, for me, like, where I began to realize like I needed support. I needed a support system, and I needed to be held accountable for my behaviors, not because somebody was a snitch or because of whatever, but because they loved me and they didn't want to see me die, really. And so, like I said earlier, I got out of prison. And something that I remember too, like my parole officer had approved my home plan, which was my parents who were the victims of my crime. And she did not approve that home plan. She suggested that I not go back there. And typically the parole board is going to go with the parole officer's suggestion. But my dad always tells me that she told him, like only like a 1 in 100 or 1,000 or something like that make it. You realize that, right? Like she's not going to make it. And my dad told her she's going to be that one. And like I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow or next year or whatever. Like I believe that if I keep practicing the principles of this program on a daily basis, like I can stay clean with the help of my higher power. But no matter what, to him I'm that one, So anyway, knocked that microphone off. I came back to Bluefield scared to death. And the day after I got back, I went to a meeting in a different fellowship because that's what I knew. Like I grew up around another 12-step fellowship because of my mom, and like I knew the Serenity Prayer from a really early age. I had no idea what it meant, but I knew the words. And so anyway, it was very soon after that I was out looking for a job because, when you're on parole, you have to work. They want your money. Or their money, I guess. And I ran into my best friend from high school, her aunt, the one that I went to Tampa with. And, she's a big part of my history as well. We did a lot of crazy, stupid things together. But I ran into her, and she was working, and she was clean, and she was in school, and like she was really doing something, and it was one of those moments. It was like, fuck, if she can stay clean, maybe I have a chance, And like I've shared this before, like, but I hope that maybe for somebody I can be that person. You know what I mean? Like I can be that person that somebody looks at and is like, wow, if she can do it, maybe I can. So anyway, she was like, I told her, my situation. I just got home, and we'd actually been incarcerated at one point together too. And she was like, well, I go to these meetings, and I think you'd really like it because there's, I remember her saying something about like there's young people there, and like we do fun shit together. And I'm like, okay, well, that sounds cool. And she was like, I'll pick you up for a meeting. I was like, okay. And I remember telling my parents that I was going with her, and they were like, where you're going where? But through my mom, like they were familiar with 12-step recovery, and so they let me go, and I walked into that meeting looking like a thug. I don't even remember that. I just remember being scared to death. But also like, I've tried everything else. And really my main motivation, like I didn't have to get a paper signed or anything, how a lot of people do, but I just didn't want to go back to jail, and I didn't want to leave my kids again. And so I went, and people were hugging me, and I was like, whoa, because I just spent 3 years incarcerated, and you don't hug each other, like that's not cool. But but people were hugging me, and they were genuinely glad that I was there. And then it was very shortly after that, may have been my second meeting, Crystal came to pick me up again, and she's like, yeah, my friend's celebrating a year clean, and we're taking her a cake. And I'm like, what? That's weird, but, I ate some cake, and, and again, like, it just reinforced that, like, people really cared about each other here, and, people weren't there to, like, get dope. And I was talking to somebody else in recovery earlier that's been staying in another area, and they were talking about how many meetings were there and how kind of sick it could be if you weren't really committed to a home group. And it just gave me a new level of gratitude for the home group in our area. And many of the women, I was going to start crying when I looked at you. Many of the women that were there that night are sitting here, and many other ones that have came are sitting in here tonight. And I don't know where I would be without them. And I thank my higher power for that. And so I kept coming back. They said, keep coming back. They told me, you have to have a sponsor. You have to have a sponsor. And like I share a lot, like this is a 12-step program of recovery. So if I want that, like I have to be willing to work a 12-step program of recovery. Like I can't come in and sit on the sidelines and maybe share or maybe just listen or whatever. Like I have to work a 12-step program. and I have to be willing to take suggestions. And I've been kind of good with that. Once I got here, once I got over the hurdle of asking for help, I learned a whole lot about myself that was really hard to look at. And I learned that my disease is not just using, that it goes way beyond that. And that's something that I'm reminded of on a daily basis. It's working through the steps for me the first time was difficult, but it was freeing, working through the steps again after that and taking a look at my shit that I still do, and I can't blame it on the dope today, and I've done just about everything wrong that a person can do here except use, and that's just by the grace of my higher power and my home group and my support system. When I got here, I thought, I don't really have a problem with relationships. I didn't really have very many, because I'm thinking about romantic relationships, first of all. I didn't have many. I was married for a while. That all ended not good because the only thing we ever had in common was dope, that wasn't even a relationship. I don't know even what you'd call it, but I learned very quickly that I had a problem with relationships. Because when I got here and the dope was gone, it's like, well, how do I deal with these emotions? How do I deal with these shitty feelings that I have? And I did a lot of wrong things, and I still do probably some wrong things. My husband would probably attest that. I like to spend money, I like to eat, So my disease is still very there, but thank God that I have 12 steps to apply to that and principles to apply to it, and it's gotten better. It keeps getting better. I came back here and didn't think I had a problem with relationships, and I did a lot of stupid stuff, and I kept thinking but I'm a grown woman, I know shit. How did I end up here though? You know what I mean? I'm sitting in Narcotics Anonymous, so I obviously don't know a whole lot about how to live, and my home group and my higher power and the 12 steps taught me how to live, taught me how to have healthy relationships and not just romantic relationships, because that's what we usually think of when we think of relationships, especially early in recovery. But it taught me how to have relationships with my parents. I lived with my parents for a while, and I remember several times, I just wanted to get the hell out of that house because it's still kind of sick, a sick environment, but every effort that I made to get out of there never worked because it wasn't meant to be, and I was able to make a lot of living amends with them by staying there, and I was there exactly when I needed to be. My mom suffered a stroke since I've been in recovery, and that was really hard because she became like a different person, and I would go into the rooms and share about it, and people would love me and offer me support, and I didn't have to get high. My children came to live with me, and that was something I didn't even ask for that. I wanted it, inside of me. I wanted them to be with me, but I didn't push it because they'd been with their dad, and I'd been incarcerated, and I wasn't going to push it, and things happened, and they ended up coming to live with me, and it was right after the man that is now my husband, we had moved in together, and he took that on wholeheartedly, and they still live with me today, and that's been 3 years ago, a little over 3 years ago. I have a son now, an almost 3-year-old son, who is, he's awesome, and my hope is that he will never have to see me use, that he will only ever know me as a clean mother. And so things have gotten way different in my life, way different. I built off of that relationship that I had with my sponsor, because I didn't trust anybody. Nobody knew me, and if you did, you wouldn't like me, right, And I told her my deepest, darkest shit, and she loved me anyway. And she actually was like, I understand, I've done some fucked up shit too. Like, that's what we do. And she accepted me for who I was. And through that relationship, I was able to build other relationships. And through that relationship, I'm able to sponsor women. Every time I look down here at these people. But if you've been here for a while and you have those relationships in your life, you understand. It's like this connection that you can't even hardly put into words, but you love these people so dearly that they are family to me, and they've been there for me through things that even my blood family have not. And I've seen so many wonderful things happen since I've been here, I've gotten married. I've seen other people get married. I've seen people have babies, and I've seen some really hard shit since I've been here. People die from this disease, and then there are fates worse than death. And it's not been pretty. But at the end of the day, like, I know that my higher power, this is where I'm supposed to be. I know it's my higher power's will for me to be here and to work this program and to carry a message to the best of my ability. And that's what I try to do. And I came in here, like they say, if you wrote a list of everything that you wanted, you'd sell yourself short, and that's definitely true for me. Since when I came here, I had this dream of continuing my education because I really wanted to do that. And but I was always, I couldn't. I was out there using, you can't really balance anything else with using. So I enrolled in a local college and was able to get my bachelor's degree. And I actually was one of 3 of the valedictorians of that graduating class that year. And I say that not to be boastful, but it's like Narcotics Anonymous gave me the ability to do that. If it hadn't been for this program, I'd have took that first bit of grant money and I would have been high as hell. So I did that, and I worked at a couple different jobs, and I was able to get a job at a new recovery center in our area, which is huge for Mercer County, West Virginia. And I was able to actually start a grad program with my sponsee. So how cool is that? And in less than a month, we will be done. Hallelujah. I will be happy. My husband will be happy. Because it's been a struggle, but it's like, it's one of those things. I wanted to do it. He knew it was important to me. We talked about it like grown-ups do, and we made a decision. He supports me, and I support him, and it's almost over. And through that, I've been able to do like an internship at Drug Court and Dairy Port in Mercer County, and I've met some really incredible people there, and I see so many me's walk through those doors, and it's been a really awesome experience. There was a point in time when I was in the therapeutic community program. We would do these groups and just different groups. And in one group I think it was on self-esteem or something like that, and they were passing this mirror around, and you had to look in the mirror and say something positive about yourself. And it got to me, and I couldn't do it. Not only could I not do it, I had to get up and leave group because I hated myself so much. Even at that point, I couldn't see anything good. And today I can look in the mirror, and that's one of the hugest things that Narcotics Anonymous has given me. I do service work, because my sponsor did service work. And it's part of what I feel like I'm supposed to do for my recovery. I can keep commitments today. I can do the things that I'm supposed to do because I'm supposed to do them. And when I tell my kids today that I'm going to do something, they know that I'm going to do it, and that's an incredible feeling. So no matter what NA has given me on the outside, relationships, school, whatever, the things that it has given me on the inside are beyond my wildest dreams. And that connection with a higher power was like that one thing that I really needed that I didn't know that I needed. You know what I mean? And when I got here and I heard the word God and pray, and I'm like, oh, I don't know about this. I'm really not a religious person, but I kept an open mind, and I stayed willing to do whatever it took, because I did whatever it took to stay high, and I am just, as one of my friends likes to say, I'm eternally grateful for the program of Narcotics Anonymous, because it has saved my life on a daily basis since the day that I got here, and that's all I have.